Okay, let's dive right in. We all learned a pretty simple story in school about how civilization got started, right? It's this tale of progress, of humanity clawing its way up from a tough, primitive life into this bright new world of cities and writing and culture. But what if that whole story is a lie?
So you've got the story we all know, right? The classic cause and effect. Farming leads to extra food, which lets some people stop farming and become an elite class that, poof, invents culture. But then there's this other really radical idea that just flips the whole thing on its head. It says, nope, culture was always there. Civilization was just a shiny new tool that the elites cooked up to justify their takeover. All right, so first, let's just do a quick run through of the version we all got in our history books. This standard story, it's all about that step-by-step material progress, those economic stages, and honestly, on the surface, it makes a ton of sense. I mean, it's such a clean, straight line, isn't it? Step 1, life is a real struggle. Step 2, we figure out farming, and suddenly there's extra food. Step 3, this frees up a bunch of people to just think, you know? And these thinkers, the priests, the artists, the scientists, they go on to build the very foundations of civilization. It just feels logical. Like, of course that's how it happened. Okay, but now let's throw a wrench in that whole idea. What if that story isn't just a little bit wrong? What if it's completely backward? This other theory says, hold on a second. We humans didn't need some fancy elite class to hand us culture on a silver platter. We had it the whole time. And this quote, man, it just nails the core of this new idea. Civilization is a device meant to gaslight or fool people into believing that a hierarchy is legitimate when it is not legitimate. Whoa. So the argument is that civilization wasn't some natural evolution, it was a gadget, a really sophisticated piece of propaganda, basically a giant scam designed to trick everybody into accepting a power structure that just wasn't natural. So in this version, the timeline is totally different. Picture this. Humans were creative from the get-go. We were always getting together for big cultural projects, building amazing temples, making art. Farming, that just came along as a way to feed everyone at these huge gatherings. But, over time, the temple priests who were running the show got a little too comfortable, a little corrupt, and turned into this hereditary elite. And then they had a huge problem. How do you stop people from just walking away? And the solution they came up with? They invented civilization. Writing, laws, big state myths, all designed to convince people that their rule wasn't just a good idea. It was the literal will of the gods. Okay, that's a pretty wild story. So where's the proof? Where's the smoking gun for this radical idea? Well, to find it, we have to go right back to the beginning, to the so-called cradle of civilization, Mesopotamia. And the evidence, as it turns out, is literally written in stone. The key piece of evidence here is the Babylonian creation myth, the Enuma Elish. And the first clue is the fact that it was written down at all. I mean, think about it. People back then had insane memories. They could recite these huge, epic poems word for word. They did not need to write them down. So why go to all the trouble of carving this one story into permanent clay tablets? It was a power move, pure propaganda, designed to make this one version of the story feel final, official, straight from the gods. So the story itself is an epic. It starts with the great mother goddess Tiamat, who is the saltwater ocean, and her husband, the freshwater. Together, they create all the younger gods. But these new gods are, well, they're loud, they're annoying, and their father decides he wants to kill them all. Tiamat gets word to her kids, who turn the tables and kill their father first. Now Tiamat is absolutely furious, and she declares all-out war on her own children. The terrified younger gods need a hero, and they elect a champion, Marduk, the god of storms and sky. He's the one who steps up to face his own mother in a battle for the fate of the universe. And the way Marduk wins is just incredibly violent and super symbolic. He doesn't just beat Tiamat, he butchers her. The text says he split her into two like a dried fish. Just think about that image. He then uses one half of her corpse to make the heavens and the other half to make the earth. This isn't just a battle, it's a complete and violent overthrow of the entire old world order. So here's the really crucial part, the massive shift in values this story represents. Before, the world of the mother goddess was all about balance, harmony with nature, compassion. Marduk's new world? It's the total opposite.
It's a world that demands struggle, hard labor, and the violent control and exploitation of nature, which, remember, is literally the body of the mother goddess. All of a sudden, things like aggressive farming, irrigation, even warfare, they aren't just human ideas anymore. They're divinely justified. And the story's not even done. After the murder, Marduk basically creates a heavenly bureaucracy. He organizes the stars into constellations, he sets up the calendar, and then he creates humans, for one reason and one reason only: to be slaves, to do all the hard work the gods don't want to do. And just like that, boom, the entire social order of Mesopotamia, from the calendar they used to the king on his throne, all the way down to the person toiling in the field, it's no longer a man-made system. It's the sacred, unchangeable order of the cosmos. But how does a piece of propaganda like this even happen? I mean, how do you take a real, authentic story that people love and twist it into a tool for state control? Well, the process is actually pretty familiar, and there's a great analogy for it. It's basically the same way a college urban legend gets started and then warped over time. It basically happens in 4 steps. Step 1, you've got a real story about a local hero. Step 2, people start telling it, and, they exaggerate it a bit to make it cooler and more memorable. Step 3, as different places get absorbed into a bigger kingdom, all their different local hero stories get blended together into one big epic. And then the final step, the bureaucrats, the priests, the scribes, they get a hold of it and they slap a moral on the end to sanitize it and tell people how to act. Let's make this super concrete with a modern example. Imagine a story starts spreading around a college campus. It's real, it's a little bit messy, and it's based on something that actually happened. So the original organic story might be something like, "Dude, did you hear? Pat Jack drove up to Canada and accidentally pissed on a sleeping bear." It's hilarious, it's specific, it's completely memorable. It's the kind of story that just takes off. Okay, so over time, the story gets bigger. Maybe Pat Jack also scored the winning touchdown that one time. The legend grows. But then, the people in charge, let's say the university administration, our modern-day priests and scribes, they decide this wild story needs to have a point. So they just tack on a new ending, and then the bear ate him. And they add a nice, clean moral. See, don't be a stupid athlete. And just like that, the fun, rebellious story has been completely hijacked and turned into a cautionary tale. The story is now way, way less interesting, right? But it's also a much better tool for telling you how to behave. And this is the exact same process that probably took all these raw, exciting hero stories from ancient times and scrubbed them clean to create the official state epics, like the story of Gilgamesh. Okay, so let's pull all these threads together. What's the big takeaway here? What does this radical new theory really tell us about the dawn of civilization and this whole idea of a mandate from heaven? Well, it suggests that all those great inventions we associate with civilization, they had a hidden agenda. Writing, it wasn't invented for poetry. It was for spreadsheets and propaganda. State religion, not for spiritual fulfillment, but for social control. And those grand epic myths, they weren't just entertainment. They were all tools. And what was their one big job? Their whole purpose was to take this brand new, totally artificial, and probably pretty shaky human hierarchy, with kings and priests and slaves, and make it seem as natural, as eternal, and as unquestionable as the stars in the sky. So if you remember one thing, let it be this. Civilization, in this view, was an invention. It was a machine designed for one specific task: to take the raw, messy fact of power and turn it into something that looked like clean, simple, unquestionable truth. And that, of course, leaves us with a pretty big question to chew on, doesn't it? If ancient civilizations created these huge myths to make their power structures seem natural, what are the stories we're telling ourselves today to justify the way our world is organized?